Evening. Welcome to Inner Space. Is there anybody here for the first time? No, right? So you know about the house rules here. So our theme this evening is about transforming waste into best. And the reason why, one of the reasons we had selected this topic is yesterday actually was the International Day of Eradicating Poverty, so letting go of poverty. And also yesterday was the International Day for the food. So gratitude towards what we've been receiving. So that was one of the reasons when we were deciding on the themes. We had selected this theme at this time of the year, is to see one of the reasons why there is so much poverty, is there is so much waste. So I'll start with sharing with some of the physical things, and then we can talk and look at some of the subtler things. So welcome again, and also welcome to our online viewers who have been joining us. And our theme this evening is transforming waste into best. As I was thinking of this theme, one of the words that kept coming to my mind was compassion. So compassion for everything, compassion for nature, compassion towards people, compassion towards animals, birds. And primarily, charity begins at home. So, sometimes we ask ourselves, there's so much waste in the world, so if I do a little bit more, so what's a big thing? Or if I'm looking after certain things, then how is it going to help to change the situation? These are things, the questions that arise in our mind. I remember when I moved to London many years ago, and prior to coming to London, I was in Canada, where recycling is a very big thing. I often used to joke with our spiritual sisters and brothers that if I didn't do my morning meditation, people wouldn't have waste thoughts there. But if I didn't recycle a bottle, or if I didn't recycle something which is meant to be recyclable, they certainly would have lots of waste thoughts. So that's type of the recycling awareness that exists in many countries. And when you came here, it wasn't as much. So, and there was no systems to kind of, we didn't have green bins or brown bins as we have now. But even then, somehow, it was just inbuilt that I would find ways, contact people where I could recycle paper, I could recycle cardboard, I could recycle whatever things I could, like the food into compost. And then many years later, the government started to take a lot more initiative, and there's many more measures now taking place, and lots of facilities available for us to recycle things. It is also something I remember that growing up in India in a childhood, and then even towards, my teenage age, and then of course I often visit practically every year. And what we've seen our parents do, our grandparents do, our neighbors do, that most things there get kind of naturally recycled, like nothing goes to waste. I remember many vegetables that I see a lot of people just throw away the peels, etc. Luckily, it's going to compost, so there's some use of it. But who knows? We can just hope that it is going to the compost for compost. But I've seen that many of these peels, many of the vegetables, etc., that often gets not used. But in India, they were being used. And it's good that I think in the childhood when you've seen that and it's kind of naturally in your system to do these things. So even here, when our various sisters and brothers kind of come and help us with cooking, and sometimes like French beans or something, they cut quite a bit of it and throw it. And I said, but why? What's wrong with it? Yeah. So like cauliflower, somebody had come from some other country, and I says, the strands. I say, okay, in certain vegetables, in certain curries, they may not go, but it's actually quite good. A lot of people actually eat just the chunks as well. So little things like this, if we're careful, we actually allow and help things to go a long way. But sometimes we just think we don't have time, etc. But I often find that when we think we don't have time to do these things, we are wasting enough time thinking that we don't have time. I might as well just do it that time, right? Like sometimes I say, okay, I'll come and do this later, and then a week later, the task is still pending. And even if you, get to do it in a week's time, but how many times you have actually thought about it? So it's good that whilst we can do it, let's just do it. It often saves time, quite opposite to what we may be thinking or believing or made to believe that we will be wasting time. So these are just some practical things in terms of a physical goods that we use. One of very popular saying, there's about 3-4 words. I don't know the exact order, but it's about these words: reuse, reduce, and refuse. Yeah. So when somebody is giving you something and you don't want it, and then very sweetly, very gently, just say, I don't need it. Like often, we ask Rose, would you like some dinner? Would you like some sweet? Would you like? No, I'm okay. So if there is enough, then why do you want to take more? Right enough, right? So it's not, I think the word refuse would be probably strong, but just very gently, very kindly say, thank you for asking, but I really don't need it. Yeah. And then reduce. There are so many things that we think we need, but do we? So let's look at things where we can reduce our intake in terms of consumption of, I'm not just thinking of food, but even things. How many handbags do I want? How many pairs of shoes I need? How many clothes I need in a year? And one of the policies I think I've also shared before with this group as well, that I have a set number of clothes I have. So once I get a new sari, one has to go. Like, it cannot or should not increase more than that. Unless, of course, you're traveling and it's needed, that's fine. But at this point in time, I don't travel as much and I don't need it. And the more saris or more clothes you have, then you find that, after 3-4 days, you would normally do your washing. You think, no, I'll do it after a week. Now I got enough clothes to wear. And so, on one hand, it's kind of abundance that I have more things. But what is it inducing in me? It's inducing laziness. It's inducing kind of, I'll do it tomorrow because, I have another pair still, so I can wash another day, right? And so it's kind of, on one hand, there is this feeling of abundance, but on the other hand, we don't know what's happening to us. So it's not to say you deprive yourself. No, this is also what I learned, because I could have gone to another extreme, and I've had beautiful people in my life who have sat down and talked to me that you do need to have clothes that are presentable. You do need to have X amount that you don't have to worry about washing every 2 days. But also the same side, Same time, I need to think, do I need more than this? And if I don't, then let me just recycle. Pass it on. Somebody can use it. And it's good, actually, just like, we look at our bank account, we look at other things. Let me also look at the physical things I have in a possession. In the last few years, one of the things come clear to me is that, say if I had to leave my body now, anybody who's going to clear my things, should not be thinking, God, she's such a hoarder, right? It's like everything that I possess personally should fit in a suitcase or so. And every year, you find that even though you do it, you'll have more to let go of. So these are some of the things I keep in mind and which has really helped me to make it simple and natural, but also very, very powerful. And just as I was explaining the word compassion, talking about the word compassion earlier, so when compassion is the seed in your awareness, then you find, even if you didn't know, you'd find ways and means, to be environmental friendly, to be climate conscious. These are big words that we now hear more and more. But I remember that my childhood, part of it was in Dubai. And at that time in Dubai, what was very popular is the silk. The materials used to come from Japan, but many people from different parts of the world would especially come there because it was cheaper than going to Japan or buying it from Japan to get those materials. But I just could not use it, and I didn't have any awareness as to how silk is produced. Right? It was much later that I realized that, and I was very thankful that I didn't use that, because it's harming an animal, harming an insect, harming somebody to actually feel good, to cover my body, to protect myself. And so many things I used to feel that naturally would come to me, and it was much later I realized, okay, that's being environmental friendly, that's being climate change conscious. And these things became a lot more clear much later. But I was very pleased that these things just happened, and I was protected from doing a lot of wrong things. And you'll find that, like at this point in time, a lot of us like to, we are in this era where mobiles, gadgets, etc. are so available, and it's almost like our life is not as smooth if we didn't have any of these. And a lot of people like to watch different things. I was just thinking that there are so many videos, there are so many articles about how we could recycle things. Like, for instance, the artwork done from by using pistachio nuts. The shells, rather. So you eat the nuts, and what do you do with the shell normally? Yeah, it goes in the bin, right? But if you look up in the YouTube or whichever medium you use, you'll find that there is so much beautiful creative work you can do with just pistachio shells. Similarly, like orange peels, how many of us think of using it? It's actually a beauty ingredient. It's very good for your hair, good for your skin, good for many things. But how many of us think about spending that time? But we're okay to watch silly videos. We're okay to watch things that are not helping us and what's the world news and what's happening here and there. But what if we just focus a little bit more on being aware and even, in fact, creating our own ideas? Yeah, so I was remembering as I was thinking about kind of creativity. my niece, of course, now she's probably, I don't know what age, 16 to between 16 and 18, I've forgotten. But when she was tiny, she was very little, and if she saw silver foil, she would take it, even if anything that had a silver wrapping, she would remove it and she'll do something out of it. And at the age of 2 or 3, so that's creativity. It's like rather than, what would you do with silver foil once you've used what's the ingredients in it? You would bin it. But she would never let it go, even a Cadbury wrapper or something, she'll do something with it. She'll come with something very creative. So there are many, many things we can do to transform waste into best. And one of the things that also come to my mind is that it's like wasting food. Sometimes when you do shopping, you think you'll need this, you'll need that, you'll need that. And the end of the week or end of few days, you find that your carrot is limp, your lettuce is limp. So you gauge that, okay, in a week's time I only use so much, so next time I shop less. Just because it's buy one, get one free, even if you're getting free, pass it on. Okay, you take it, but pass it on to your neighbor, pass it on to somebody who's more in need. Pass it on before it's, it passes its usable condition. Sorry? Yeah, freeze it, yes. Yeah, I was just sharing with somebody, I think, just maybe even yesterday. I also did spend some time in Canada at our center. And one time, one of the family who had done the meditation course, they actually brought a lot of vegetables. And I said to the sister, we can freeze them. I didn't realize that freezing also had a procedure. She said, yeah, next thing she went is give me a book. So read this and figure out how to freeze it. And that book had really how much what vegetable should be blanched at what heat and how many minutes, etc. So the freshness and the goodness is retained. So it was a good learning curve that time, because her father, the sister that I shared the center, lived with her. Her father was actually used to have this business of frozen food, and how actually some of the frozen food, quite opposite to what we are made to believe, is retaining lots of goodness better than the old food that we may eat, kind of thing. So yeah, in those days I learned how to freeze. Now it just automatically happens. So which one you blanch or which one you just freeze it, and what temperature. So there's a whole book on it. So yeah, rather than either pass it on or to preserve it in a certain way that it will be useful in the time of need. And one of the other things I think in most countries you find, and certainly I know in Brent, there's lots and lots of work that's being done in terms of climate change. And one of the apps that's available is Good to Go Food, something like that. And so like if you have that, or if you're member of that, you'll be reminded, like in your area, there's food in a certain supermarket, or your neighbor or whatever wants to give it away. I mean, because it took a lot of memories, I don't have it anymore. But it was it would ping that oranges are available or mangoes are available, because it's going to waste. So whoever can use it, it's better, or it would be shared with you at a reasonable price. So I'm sure there are many, many apps like that, or many communities like that you could, be part of. And help reducing the waste. So reduce, refuse, reuse where possible, yeah, and basically the awareness of that I am a compassionate soul, that you don't want to harm anybody. So it's like even wasting vegetable. It's like occasionally I have to, because just, we've forgotten to change the water or something. But even when I'm putting in the green bin, I'm asking for forgiveness. I'm saying sorry. I could have been a bit more attentive and not wasted, not, used you in the right way. So these are simple things that you can adopt in life to make sure that most of the things around you is not wasted. And you'll be surprised that when people observe you, often they may just silently observe you and they pick up. And they also start to do something, or at least they become aware. Maybe they'll have to see you do it 10 times before they get inspired. It's a bit like the advertisement. What's for the print adverts. So nowadays it doesn't happen like in the newspaper and all. But when we were initially used to do a lot of advertisement through print media, we were told that often something has to be seen or read about 10 times before somebody notices it properly. So it's like somebody may criticize you, somebody may, make fun of you for what you're doing, the silly things, because they think it's silly, but you continue to do it. I remember that in one of the setups I was for quite some time, some of the sisters had resistance to having a green bin, in the house. So every time I had some fruits, I had some vegetable peels, I would wrap it in newspaper and go and put it outside. For some reason, practical reasons, we just could not have it in the kitchen because there was just lots of flies and people didn't have enough time to empty it regularly. But it was checking my authenticity, that how much I value recycling. And so even if it was quite late, even if it was whatever, I would still wrap it in a newspaper or a brown paper and then go and put it outside in the green bin. So we had a green bin outside, but not inside. But now, after persistence, we do have a green bin inside as well in our house. So, sometimes some of these things, you have to have a lot of patience for people to understand, for people to accept. And sometimes it's just the practical things that gets put into place, and then easy methods are available for you to do this naturally. So we've talked quite a few things about physical things. We are not here just to find out about physical things. But how can we also apply these 3 words internally, subtly? That something that is toxic has come to my mind, something that is not so pure and positive, not so helpful, can I refuse to dwell on it? Can I stop myself on thinking about it? Sometimes we may not put anything into action, but when a waste thought comes in, and that waste eventually leads into negativity. And we try to tell ourselves that situations were such, circumstances were such, so it was best natural that I had to think about these things, or these things were kind of bombarded towards me, or these things were inflicted in a way. Hands on our hearts and say, you have a choice, isn't it? Whether I take it on board or I don't. And if I have a choice, why would I then choose to take something that is not so good quality? Let's say so you went for shopping and you saw 2 cauliflowers or 2 broccolis or 2 whatever, same price. Which one will you take? The one that's about to wilt or slightly wilted even? And the one looks better, fresher. Which one would you choose? Yeah? Would you think that let me take the old ones, the one coming after me will get a better one? No. I'm not saying we should, but when we don't do that for goods, when we don't do that for physical things, when it comes to our thoughts, why are we not so adamant about it? Why are we not so clever about it? Why are we not so wise about it? Not to select something that is, I know, if not now, sooner or later is going to turn into waste. So I was just also thinking, as I was thinking of this theme, that we've had so many examples in the world, and especially the one that I often remember is Dadi Janki. It's like when she would see people's personality, she would not allow that to bother her. She would not allow that to interfere in her respect for that person or love for that person. And sometimes, you would think, is Dadi naive? Is Dadi kind of sort of so laid back that she's not able to see that this person has this personality or this person has this nature, a weakness? No, she was very aware of. But it was a conscious choice that I'm here to love and respect everyone. Immaterial of what they do, immaterial of what they say, immaterial of various things. Because one of the greatest things that bothers us is when people we know, people we love, whether it's our friends or relatives or colleagues or neighbors, when they act in a way that we're not so happy about, when you've gone out of your way to do things for them, and then they turn around and say something that's not nice about you, or say things about you behind your back, and I've done so much, and yet you think that about me? Come on. And it hurts us, and waste sets in. Once the waste sets in, then it would lead to sorrow, it would lead to more sorrow, and then to depression or to wherever. A lot of it also has to do with our childhood. We were in a session, it was last week, we were discussing trauma. And one thing that was coming quite clearly, it was a few hundred people. A lot of things that we witness in our childhood, how deeply it is engraved in us. And then it's naturally, that's what keeps coming until you actually make a firm decision, firm choices to change. I remember when I started to live at the centers of the Brahma Kumaris, and I had to, be with people from different walks of life, and some of the stories I would hear. So when I would see my parents, because they were also members of the Brahma Kumaris, I would tell them, I said, I wish you guys had fought sometime. Because, when people come and say this, that my parents are doing this, my mother says this about my father says about my mother, I'm thinking, I had never seen my parents fight, let alone fight. They never argued. If one said something, the other agreed. One wanted to spend money on this, that's fine. There was never a question, there was never an argument. And there's absolute love and respect. So when I got to hear the stories, I was 20-something when I kind of started living at the center. I didn't know. I didn't know that was the world. It was only in the books that I had read, okay, there's dysfunctional families, and there's this and that. But I didn't know. So what naturally would just come to me, because that's all we've seen our parents do. And I could only advise them on to do that, right? So that was inbuilt. Because that's what you saw from the childhood. But having said that, doesn't matter. Wherever we are now more spiritually inclined. We have the opportunity to be able to listen to spiritual wisdom. And there's so much available which is good in the world. The age of internet, the age of where the world is so close, it's not like apart anymore. But then what am I listening to? What am I watching? And what am I reading? So we have to be aware of that. So when we talk about the company we keep, because often wrong companies bring a lot of waste and negativity in our life. Where we're surrounded by just violence and foul words and swearing. But naturally, you would be affected. But even then, I have a choice. If I can come out of that situation, let me do it. But if I cannot, let me find ways to change them to being more positive. Rather than accepting that this is my destiny and I have to do this. Yeah. So there's various little stories that I'm remembering in terms of waste into best. Probably heard this story earlier. There were two Buddhist monks. They were traveling, and in fact they had to even swim to go from one end to another end. There was a valley or river they had to cross. And there was this beautiful woman, who could not swim. So, and there was nobody else, and she wanted to go to the other side of the river. So she asked the monk if he can help her. And one of them said, no. It's like we're not allowed to touch women, we are monks. And the other one said, yeah, okay. And he took her. And then dropped her wherever she wanted, the other end. And then the two of them were walking, the two monks. The one that had not helped the woman, could not resist asking the other monk, saying, but how come? How come you could carry her and bring her across? Yeah? He said, I carried her and I dropped her, but you're still carrying her. Yeah? He just saw that there was somebody in need. There was nobody else. So he helped her. But that was it. Forgotten. And the other one was still caring, though he didn't perform the act physically, but the waste. And sometimes, our kind of very superficial understanding of what spirituality is makes you think that. Often we have discussions, especially working with, spiritual people, younger bodies, they make you look at things, what you thought was right, which you thought was the right discipline to follow, right protection. The reality is, it's about the heart, isn't it? What is true to you? So I remember that, in terms of remembering one incident, that there was a couple, and I'm going back to many years, beginning of my spiritual journey. I was in Dubai, and they asked for some materials. And in those days, we did not share spiritual materials at the advanced level. People had to come to the center to listen to read. And that was the discipline, and I was just following it. A few years later, when I looked at it, that incident where I had said no, and luckily they didn't fall apart. They continued to come. We continued to be good friends. And then I was able to say sorry, that I didn't think that time. So it was much later I realized that what I did that time was not necessarily right. Though it was the discipline, though it was the system of the center, I needed to see what their needs were rather than just having a blanket answer, no. And so, when something has gone wrong, whatever time, whenever you realize, if possible, ask for forgiveness. And of course, if people have passed away or people have gone somewhere else, or you're not, in connection, then true your mind. These were silly mistakes you did. Maybe silly, maybe major mistakes you did. And to take away any sorrow that may have caused others that time. Yeah. Sometimes, like one of the things that I'm still not there, but a lot better than before, is when you get into action mode, when you get into even service mode, your focus is on the task, but you forget the people. You forget to sometimes smile, you look up and then you get back to your work. All you need is, even if you don't have time to say hi, hello, everything, at least just smile, at least just look at them, at least acknowledge. Even the task that you're involved is very spiritual. What is more important? This is a balance. It's not that I can just be available for everybody anytime and not do anything that is important and necessary. But there are little ways and means that we can be aware of, adopt in our lives, in our day-to-day dealings, that will make such a difference, that will save us from receiving any waste, but also that we would not be giving anything, any reason for people to have waste. Because do we, any of us want to harm anybody intentionally? Would you like that to be your hobby? To displease somebody? To harm somebody? No. So sometimes we have to step back and ask ourselves, why am I doing whatever I'm doing? Because sometimes we remember the method to get there, but we forget what is it that we're achieving. And sometimes the methods become the wrong method then, not so promising, not so profiting. And this is where we have to change. Simple things like that, what we've learned from our seniors. If there is just warmth in your heart, if your heart is full of true love for everyone, you will actually be touched. And sometimes you hear that as well, that all of a sudden, I normally don't talk to you, but then I'll come and say, is everything okay today? And you think, that's all I needed to hear. Normally you don't talk to that person, but somehow you'll be guided. Yeah? And so, one other being that I like to bring in our conversation is the one up above. The more I connect myself with the higher source, the ocean of happiness, the remover of sorrow, the benefactor, the benevolent one. And if I make that as my prime connection, as my prime relationship, prime guide, what happens is that if I'm receiving so much happiness, then what other difficulties come my way will not be that difficult. It's just like often, of course things are different these days, but see, like in a setup where a girl, a woman gets married and goes to the in-laws. And most people are not so kind. But the husband is. Or the mother-in-law is. Or somebody powerful in their family is. And they get so much love from them. The rest of them are always finding faults or putting you down or whatever. But that one person's love, one person's respect for you is enough to withstand and to face all the other challenges. That's just human being. Think about God. God's love is unconditional and it's available 24/7. And there's so much happiness. So things get taken away, positions get taken away, wrong things are being understood about yourself. Doesn't matter. Of course, it's not to say that I don't change where I need to, because none of us are perfect. So I'm open to change, I'm open to suggestions, but not at the expense of my self-respect. So yeah, it's a journey. I was there, I'm here today, and I've yet a long way to go. So my self-respect is kept intact. God's help is received. Transformation takes place, waste into best. Maybe it is good, better, and then best. It doesn't happen best right away necessarily. It is there. You know, there's this question that was asked once to Rumi, that how long will you burn? So the answer was, I don't remember the exact words, but till all the negativity is gone. And so in the sense, we have to keep that attention continuously, where I need to carry on, what I'm doing, where I need to change. Because even if I don't change, I think I've said them 3 times, they don't listen, I'm not going to tell them anymore. No, that's harming myself. Okay, maybe I change the way I tell them. Maybe I work more subtly if the words are not working. Just like the green bin. You continue to do whatever is important religiously, without feeling the pain. Wait for the right time, have the patience, and it will happen. Some things will bear instant fruits, some may take a little longer. So I'll pause here to see if there is any questions from the floor or our online viewers. Okay. Questions? Yes?
Yeah, it's about taking sorrow. I know that, I read it in Daddy's book in the mornings, neither gives, don't take sorrow and don't give sorrow. But I'm in a situation where my sister is losing the battle of alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walk down the road from my mother's house to her flat, which is only down the road, when I walk the dog there, and I know what's going on in that flat where she will not accept any help. We haven't spoken for over a year, and the worry that it's causing my mum, and I know what's going on. I know how dark it must be for her in that flat, and I'm not sure if she's going to make it. I find it very hard not to take that sorrow. It is in my heart. It's in my heart. My worry for my mother, my worry for whatever differences we have. There were moments as sisters and as a human being, what she is suffering and cannot take the help that's on offer, and degradation of alcoholism. I'm finding it very hard not to carry that in my heart. I'm not carrying it every moment of the day, but it is there, and it is
so now
making me very, very sad.
So it's just about transforming that feeling from being sorrowful to being compassionate. So if you maybe just use a different word when you think about her, think about what she's going through, or what things that she's not ready to accept, and change that to compassion. You probably heard about NLP. Yeah. So the words we use for ourselves or for others or situations have an impact on us. So like if I make mistakes and I say, how stupid of me. It's like, if we tell ourselves, how stupid of me, many times a day, we will become stupid one day. So we have to stop saying that I'm stupid. I remember that a few years ago, maybe at the age of, when I was 45 something, there was few months where I used to forget so much. And generally I have a good memory comparatively. Things are different now a little bit, and often I find it's because I've chosen to be that way. But I would come from the kitchen to the storeroom and I've forgotten what I came for. And that's just next door. Like, for those of you who've seen that side of the building. So I had to go back to the kitchen to remember to see what I was doing. So, okay, it was salt that I needed to bring, or it was this I needed to stock. Can you believe, just within a few seconds I've forgotten? And for somebody who has had, could remember numbers, could remember relatives, could remember many things, even just one time you tell me something and I would have remembered otherwise. It was hard and it was shocking for me too. And when I was sharing with one or two of the mothers, they said, but you're still too young to feel that. Like I'm 60, you're only 45, you shouldn't be feeling that. And then I said, it could happen to anybody, It could happen to an age of somebody who's 4 years old. So that actually made me more compassionate for people who were around me who used to forget things. But I consciously chose not to say, I forget things. Because I know it would only have emphasized that habit or that lapse of memory even more. So I was not in denial that it was happening to me, which was very strange because I hadn't seen that happen to me before. But at the same time, I didn't worry. And that's why I think within few months, less than few months, I was able to be normal, what I knew myself to be. So don't use the word sorrow. Just say, you're more compassionate. And you will find that the feeling is a little bit lesser in terms of the heaviness. And then it will settle more and more. So the sadness will be less and less, and eventually none. And we could talk about after the lecture as well. I could maybe suggest certain names that you could contact, talk to them. Is there any other questions? If not, we'll finish with some meditation. Yeah.
The world population stands at 8 billion, but it's going to double in 25, 30 years. At the same time, we got environment problems and waste problem and all that. How are we going to deal with it later on, years to come?
I would suggest that let me not think about what's going to happen. Let me see what I can do in terms of turning waste into best and inspire others to do that. Yeah? So as we inspire others to do it, and when there will be a certain number of people that will be inspired, the world will change. Like, who would have thought about veganism being so popular in UK 10 years ago even? And now, we have so many vegan shows in UK, in London itself. So many people, sisters and brothers who come from Indian background, where dairy product is like prime thing, turning into vegan. So change will happen. So I remember Dadi Janki saying one time, it was in a different context, but I think it applies here as well, that somebody did something wrong, and people from our IT team, they were very little scared in the sense, this is why is all these false news about Brahma Kumaris being spread? Why is this person saying this and that and other when it's not true? And Nadi just said, yeah, you do what you can to change that, but always remember, if one comes to harm somebody, if one does wrong, there'll be thousands who will do good. So the population may increase, but the means and the setup will also change to accommodate. Yeah. So, but main thing is not about worrying. The main thing is what I can do right now. What's available, my understanding, my awareness, my physical strength. What is it that I can do now? Yeah. Okay. So we'll finish with some meditation and then a bit of announcements. Just sit back relaxed, the feet on the ground. Breathing in deeply but gently. And breathing out. I take my thoughts within. I become aware of my purer self. Self that is positive. Self that is compassionate. Self who has love. For everyone and everything. And as I become aware of that love and compassion, I'm guided to take the right steps. To transform waste into best. I become aware of things that I wasn't before. I can sense the need of the people, nature, animal kingdom, the birds. I now slowly connect through my awareness with that being of light, the supreme light, the ocean of unconditional love. The all-powerful one. as I receive His love, her love. The weaknesses, darkness, sorrow diminishes. And I feel empowered. Slowly and gradually, I bring back my awareness to where I am. Feeling more compassionate, more empowered. More ready for any challenges that could come my way. Thank you for your kind attention. Om Shanti. So, next Monday is Diwali, the Festival of Light. So our topic next week is about Diwali. And we have Sister Shashi, who's agreed to come here. And there will be maybe a couple of other items too. And of course, the main theme would be about coming into light. And our online meditation is every Monday and Thursday from 7 to 7:30. And do go to our website to see what else is available. We have some courses we are offering in-house and many courses online. And you browse into our shop. There's lots of books that will help you, books, CDs, posters, how to turn negative into positivity. And so go home safely and see you soon. And also you're free to come and use the quiet room during our opening times. We have a quiet room that is especially reserved for people who want to meditate. Okay? Om Shanti.